If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to jump back to the previous episode to listen to the first half of this conversation. Come back here for part 2.
Welcome to the Building Doctor Show with Jens Johansson.
Okay, now we're going to get into these vents and soffits and kind of window design. And so let's see, I'll go ahead a slide. So this is our soffit. And you can see a couple of vents here. They're vents with metal. Now I'll show you another design that has the vent coming through where the gutter is. Let me jump slides around on you just a little bit. So here's another intake vent going right under the gutter. So if I'm the fire, I'm coming up and I hit this soffit that's enclosed and non-combustible. I'm the fire and I have to bend around it and go out. If I'm an exposed or an open vent and I have some eave bird blocking or whatever you want to call it, I'm the fire, I go up and I kind of get caught in there and I go that way up into your roof system and I go that way and it burns the edge of the roof off. Remember that first photo we showed you? The edge of that building's roof was burned off because the fire kind of got up in there, got stuck. And so this is an interesting vent location. We don't see it a lot, but it makes sense for what they're trying to do. But here's an enclosed soffit. Here's how the fire kind of comes up there. It hits this mesh screen. It doesn't go right through the mesh. It's kind of a multi-layered integrated mesh that keeps the fire from licking and keeps the embers from getting blown in there. And so there's that. So we're going back to, and then kind of my bottom bullet there. If you don't want to deal with soffits and vents and all that stuff, just do a ventless roof system. It's called a warm roof or a cold roof. So you can Google either one of those two designs, but with the warm roof, I get rid of my vents. I don't have any airflow. I have insulation installed differently. It's against the bottom of the roof sheeting, or the insulation's on top of the roof sheeting under the roofing. So I've just totally taken the attic and the need to ventilate. I've just taken that away. So no fire can get in there because there's no vents. So it's warm roof design with exterior insulation. You can Google that and see what we're talking about if you don't want to mess around with that. Or if you're considering a roof replacement, let's just stop messing with these vents in the attic and all that stuff. Let's just make a warm roof out of it. Okay, so we can't use fiberglass or plastic vents. They melt. There's some different kind of vents out there. So we talked about this. Now, here's the vents that they're talking about. This is just go to Google and say soffit vents fire resistant. And you can find all sorts of vendors with here, and here's their different styles of vents, and they are expensive. So it's more expensive, but you're getting a fire rated vent system that is it keeps the fire out for an extended period of time. But you can see it's kind of a high-tech vent, and fire itself can't wick through it, and embers get blocked and they stay out. And so that's something you can look into. Okay, my favorite way, and maybe it's just the super soaker, and I'm reminded of those big pump up squirt guns, and you just go blast your siblings and friends. So this is kind of a game changer. And so think of it as an exterior sprinkler system that wets down the whole house as well as the surrounding landscaping. And so there's two types. There's a permanent type that you build into your house. And I'd really think about that if you had a cabin in the woods or a lodge or some vacation home that you weren't always there at. But if you live at the place, if you live there, typically you see this fire coming and you have a couple hours before you're told to evacuate. And so you can set up these essentially sprinklers. And so here's a bracket that clips to your gutters. Here's a couple of brackets. They have kind of a Y shape, so they sit on the peak of your roof. And so you have a line of them going down the roof. You clip it on some gutters. Here's some kinds that you clip on fences. Think of a fence system, and then they shoot 360 degrees. And so we can plug these things in with hoses. I'm told to evacuate. I turn on the garden, or I turn on the faucet, and I evacuate and just let the water run. And so it's wetting the roof down, it's wetting the landscaping down. If any ember by chance got onto there, it'd be doused immediately. The lawn is wet, the yard is wet. That's this. I mean, just everything is wet. It's just getting soaked. And so we kind of looked into that and we said, what does that cost? This looks like more of a permanent system that somebody's hard mounted, and it might be ugly, but I think you could mount in some different ones. But this looks like maybe a hard system, maybe they just drape some hoses up there. But the takeaway is all these T's in a, if I need a bunch of hoses, I need some T's or connectors where I can tie into the existing ones. Along those lines, you can see if I've got something that's every 15 feet, I need a hose between each sprinkler. And so we'll get to that in a second. But here's some more close-up views of that. These guys look hard piped, so maybe this is one of these examples where they just built in the sprinklers just like their lawn, and when they need to turn it on or they have a remote sensor, they can use their app and turn it on from far away. So that's a nice feature as well. But for existing buildings, it's a nice feature. So here's the article, came off of X, and so this house didn't burn down, and it's out in the forest. And so he had, it looks like hard pipe system. This is copper piping, and he had run it on his roof, and big blasting sprinklers. You can see it's just flooding the house, and so house didn't burn down. Nice way to do it. Carolyn will put the video link in the chat. So that again came off X. So here's the easiness of this. So we just went to, again, Amazon, said, I've got one hose bib. How do I turn this into 3 or 4 hoses? Well, this one hose bib out the front and maybe one hose bib in back. Now I can run 8 hoses. This thing's about $12. Okay. This thing is a tripod and a big sprinkler, $50. And it's Home Depot. This is more of a kit, but that's those clamp-on gutter style things. It comes with a couple of those, couple of brackets that you can screw to maybe a fence or a post or something. And then the easier to store, nice roll-up canvas hose. So that's that hose like firefighters. It's a round hose, but it flattens out. So these coils are really small. Now, it's $220 for 2 sprinklers and 2 hoses. For $200, I can buy some sprinkler heads, and I can buy a bunch of on sale garden hose. Granted, it's a bigger coil, but the point here is for about $1,500, you can have a couple of crates with some extra hoses and these things and tripods and sprinkler things that you can put in a back of the closet or back of the garage for just in case. And so you can really make a difference with a few sprinklers on the roof, a few sprinklers in the front yard, a few sprinklers in the backyard, and all that can be set up in 2 hours before you have to evacuate. And so you can kind of think about, if I've got 6 buildings, how do I do this? Well, each building has a hose bib, and I can connect some hoses. If I've got one building, or if I've got, a bunch of brush around the far building in the back, maybe that building needs it, but there's only pavement around my front buildings. So maybe I'm okay just protecting that building. Who knows? But these are things you can start kind of thinking through. And I think for one building, $1,500, you'll be way ahead to have a few of these remote sprinkler stations just to blast it away. Okay, so number one, having these products on hand. Number two, for a total net value of $1,500, you can be protected. Number three, fire resistant construction. So first part was just make everything wet. I don't have to change the building at all. Number three, if I get to fire resistant construction, think of metal roofs, brick, concrete, fiber cement. It's better than wood. Think of tempered windows. So again, if I'm going to be considering some repairs or some replacements in the future, we'll probably start looking at this. And the code's going to change and probably start making us use this stuff. Another big takeaway, number four, defensible space. So that fire resistant landscaping. Remember that one house in Maui, they just dug up the grass and the reeds and the beautiful palm branches and things like that and put in river rock, mulch, fire resistant vegetation. You saw the pavers, the patios, the little paths. So fire resistant landscaping is a big deal. And then the non-burnable fences or even the 3-foot stone walls keep that grass fire from coming all the way up against the building, stops the stone wall. And then having building fire escape plans tailored to your building and even practicing some drills. So here's what we mean by that. So some tips on community fire evacuation plans. Understand your fire risks and hazards. Every community is different. Every property is different. The neighboring property may be the forest, so you do the best you can with your defensible spaces. Obviously, a building map, including the escape routes, the locations of fire extinguishers, making sure your fire extinguisher system works, the poles, the cabinets, the extinguishers are charged. You're supposed to have those things inspected annually. How far away the fire hydrants are, the utility shutoff points, where's the gas meter, where's the wrench to turn the gas meter off, things like that. And don't forget vulnerable residents. Maintain a list of residents who need some extra help. Develop a buddy volunteer system. I'm going to go check on these 3 people. You check on those 3 people. Cell numbers, people know how to get a hold of each other. And then, in the event of evacuation, that's kind of a scary time of, your mandatory evacuation. Everybody's got to leave. And now we got to get on the highway and sit in traffic. Thinking about preparing a emergency supply kit with resources, encourage people to put together what's called a go bag, just essentials, ID, food, water, medication, maybe a thumb drive with important documents on it. Any of these snowstorms and traffic jams, people talk about having a way to go to the bathroom, those, wet wipes and things like that. That becomes important. And then, schedule annual fire drills and even prepare for these things and collaborate with the fire department. If you're in a master community, maybe there's several associations. Maybe you can get with the fire department to come to the community clubhouse and present to, the 9 associations and talk about fire safety and things like that. So they like doing that. They want to do that with you. It helps ultimately their jobs and keeping people safe. And so making sure all your fire system are up to date and, checked and maintained and things like that. Okay, fire escape maps. Here is a classic, very confusing one. This building kind of had a circular floor plan. And so the takeaway of this one, it's kind of a funny, crazy map with way too many arrows. We get the idea there's 4 or 5 exits. But do we need 2 arrows coming here and 2 arrows coming there and another arrow going that way? Maybe just bigger arrows showing flow. And so, 1 arrow that kind of, if I'm over here, I go that way. If I'm over here, I go that way. This turns into one. If I'm here, now I can go this way, or now I don't know. So analysis paralysis. But it's nice. It shows you where first aid is. It shows you where the fire extinguishers are. It shows you, some key things. But I would simplify. But hey, the alarm's going off and it's dark and I'm kind of nervous and I'm stressed. And so then being able to see that and go that way. Every hotel room has it. Here's how to get out. They've got lit exit signs. They've got, so kind of think about, does my building have a good fire escape map, and do I know where to go? All right. Understanding some insurance and risk assessment. And so we talked about codes may be changing. Well, insurance policies will be changing. And so understanding wildfire and fire insurance coverage and common gaps in policies. The best way to do this is have an insurance agent or insurance representative kind of guide you through what you think you need. And so do I need, wildfire policy? Well, am I in a zone? Am I in a thing? I don't think I need it. Okay. And so having somebody advise you and not just upsell you into every single rider that you might need, that's what I'm getting at. So coverages may become more restrictive. So this is some insurance companies, if they got burned, no pun intended, paying out too much in fire damage, they will probably pull back and they'll say, we don't want to work in California anymore. We don't want to work in, Florida. They do this for every kind of storm or every kind of natural disaster. There's too many hurricanes. We paid too much in hurricanes. We're going to pull out of those. We're going to pull out of Tornado Alley. We're just not going to insure there. We're going to go insure over there. And so understanding coverages will get more restrictive and less companies offering it. So they may be interested in you sharing your fire prevention plan and fire sprinkler system with them. And they may offer a discount. So think about the security system. Think about, hey, I took out my fireplace wood burning wood stoves and I put in gas, and so you get little points for this. I have a security system, so give me 10% off my policy. I have a super soaker exterior fire sprinkler system. I don't think I'm going to burn down. Does that get me something? So talk to them. And so that's what I'm looking at. So check exclusions. And so sometimes we get a little bit of this coverage issue of acts of terrorism or states of emergency. And so if this fire was determined a terrorist act, and so we see some of this stuff of people lighting fires, they don't have to cover, the insurance doesn't have to cover because it was stated this was a terrorist act. So unless you have a terrorism rider to your policy, you may not have coverage. And we'll see that in the next, as California really goes through this, and they're still sifting through the policies. And states of emergency is another one. If it's been declared a state of emergency, this is a force majeure event. There may be some, this was declared a state emergency. Go talk to FEMA. Go talk to the state and their policy. We don't have to cover it now that it's been declared something. So you might want to look into those coverages and see what happens. And so anyway, understanding that, it's all that much more important to have your agent or a good insurance consultant take you through this and say, I've looked at your property, I know where you're at, I know what your concerns are, here's the coverage I would choose, and here's the policy I'd pick. So there's those types of people out there. And then tips, always documenting your property. Every phone has a camera and a video. So remember, the houses were just leveled. There was nothing left. There was a pile of ashes. So instead of trying to dig through, family pictures where we're out front taking pictures to demonstrate that I really had a house that was 2 stories and it had windows here and here and here, and it had a deck and it had a hot tub, all that's just ash. And so maybe creating some photos coverage once a year, saying, hey, and saving it in a separate folder. Here's the insurance coverage file photos. Taking a video, I'm walking around. I had this type of deck, this type of stuff on the deck. I want these contents replaced. And that's good practice for interior as well. So if you have an interior problem, here was my leather couches. I don't want to argue with somebody that, these are really expensive couches. Here's the brand name. I'm in the video doing that. and I'm not having to prove that I have this type of TV or this type of couch from receipts that I don't save. I've just got the annual, or every 2 years, I've got some photos and a video, and I can review that. Those people, not only for insurance coverage, but everybody now rebuilding in California, get in line. So the first client that can come with a set of plans and a picture of here's what I had, rebuild this. Okay, great. You're ready to go. Let's go. I can reconstruct that. Now we can take pictures and send them in for AI rendering and get floor plans and elevations and things like that kind of digitally built. So again, pictures and videos will help you build back faster and help you avoid arguing with insurance coverage. All right. So a lot of this was talking about somebody else's misery. So if you want to donate to the California Wildfire Fund, here's a couple of links. This is the LA Fire Department Foundation. It's kind of a wildlife emergency fund. And then the LA Regional Food Bank. Both of these are stressed. The links are in the thing. Fires are always tragic. And if you want to help those affected, here's a couple of links for donations. Okay, are you fire-wise with your building? So here's the link. You can QR code for those of you who don't like to type. If you like to type, it's learn.j2consultants.com/consultant-on-call. So set up a free 15-minute call with me and get some specific advice about your building. All right, we can get into the Q&A section. So make sure you type in those things to the Q&A, and let's get into these questions. So the first few questions we have are those sent to us between the shows. So you can turn these in anytime, and then we get notified later as somebody watches the YouTube video, and you can type those things in your comments, and we get notified about it. So, okay, how often should we revisit and update our community's fire evacuation plan to stay compliant and prepared? So if you have a plan and the building hasn't changed, I mean, once it's in place, it's just an annual reminder to make sure it's still relevant, or if there's any changes that need to be made, or if the equipment's up to date and maintained. And, most buildings have the fire department comes in and inspects, excuse me. And so we can see it's been inspected, we can see it's up to date and it's maintained and things like that. So talking about this or reminding or making this top of mind, that's the best practice for a safety plan. Saying we have a plan, it's posted on the wall, it's right here, so letting everybody know we have a plan in place, use the fire extinguishers, in the event of a fire, do X, Y, and Z. So that's notifying, that's talking about it, that's doing that stuff. And so maybe checking it, part of your annual board meeting review in January is to say, where is that plan? Does it need to be updated? Is it correct? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, great. So we're good. Put it in a reminder, put it in 2 newsletter reminders in January or December. Hey, now that Christmas decorations are up, there's lots of extra tinsel and paper. Make sure you refer to our fire protection plan. Now it's May, June, barbecue season. Make sure you refer to our fire protection plan. So that's a good way to do that. Once it's created, it's out done, and it doesn't take that long to create. So good question. How often should we schedule professional inspections for our community to ensure fire readiness? Every 1 or 2 years. Once you do it the first time, that concept of defensible space, the concept of sheds and firewood piles and cardboard boxes around the recycling bin, all those things are going to be known. And so then it's do it once, and then you kind of have a list that falls into your maintenance department, and you can pull out that list and read it and go, yep. Okay, great. I don't need a professional to come tell me to cut back the dead brush because I know I need to. So that's how often should we schedule it? Do it once, and then every 2-3 years. Okay, what are the best fire resistant materials to recommend for upcoming roof or siding repairs in a wildfire prone area? So, high robust, wildfire prone. I would be working on defensible space as much as possible. So remember, again, what I learned here is it's not just roofing materials and whatever, but keep the fire away to begin with. And so as much kind of clearing, but making it not just look like a scraped site, but landscape it, clear it, defensible space. Trees are a ways away. But if I'm looking at materials, roofs, I'm going to be metal or tile, maybe a thick asphalt that has a heavy duty asphalt rating, and then maybe a membrane, a PVC membrane with insulation on top because the insulation doesn't burn. So my roof will get punctured with embers, but so I'll need a new roof, but it won't burn my house down. So again, metal, tile are real good fire resistant roofs. On the walls, I'm thinking, again, high robust. I'm going to talk about stone, brick, stucco, then next level down, cement board, and then kind of figuring out, again, robust level. So metal, brick, metal CMU block, and then stucco parge coat on top of that. Kind of that Adobe Southwestern look. But there's lots of other materials that are coming out that don't burn. They may melt, but they don't light your house on fire. So that's another thing to think about too. Like I talked about on the roof may not burn, but it'll be totally full of holes and need to be replaced. Okay, so I don't want to have to replace it after every fire season. I want it to last 30 years. So that's where metal cladding is a good one. So if you want a big metal box, that's a good one. Not going to burn. But for making it cool looking, the stucco, the stone, the brick, those are all really robust materials. Okay, now we're getting into live questions. So I'm going to go up to my thing there, and I'm going to look in Q&A. I've got one question. Okay, come on, people. We got to put more questions in here. Okay, Froggers. We're back to Froggers. You can Google PHROGGERS. We think we put out really good technical, nerdy building envelope stuff to make you learn more about your building or help you learn more about your building. Our Frogger webinar was off the charts just because everybody wants to read about it. So everybody's freaked out about it. So this is one of those questions. What about crawl spaces for Froggers? Yep. Okay. So we can build, you can build walls. I'd have to check the code for fire rating, but again, kind of that concept of compartmentalizing, preventing people from going back and forth. If I needed a ventilation flow system, a chain link fence works really good, keeps the Froggers out, allows ventilation. If I want fire control, I'm using a party wall or gypsum layer again, or even concrete stem walls, things like that. So just think about it as separating common spaces. Crawl spaces are more prone for people, Froggers, living in instead of just sneaking into your unit, getting stuff. They're more for, maybe it's on a hillside, so I've got actually a not quite a daylight basement, but a 5 foot, 6 foot. I can kind of get in there, get out of the weather. It's warm and dry. And now I'm kind of inside your unit hanging out and nobody knows. So that's what a Frogger is, but that's the crawl space. Okay, so we have additional training for boards and managers. We've got free on YouTube and our website, and we also have paid. So let's call us and let's see what you need. We can design a custom plan for you. So these are really good for new boards or new board members that, hey, our board just got replaced. We're a brand new baby board. We don't know where to start. You need some more time and energy kind of working through these things. So we offer that. QR code will get you there. And then stream this webinar wherever you go. We're on all the cool places. Again, scan the QR code or just search for J2 Building Consultants on any of your favorite places. So thanks for tuning in. See you next month. Don't forget to set up your call. And you guys are great. Good questions. Keep your buildings fires safe.
This podcast is part of J2's free live webinar, The Building Doctor Show. To attend the live show and ask your questions during the Q&A, visit www.j2consultants.com.